You're listening to Crushing Club Marketing, a podcast for progressive club leaders ready to increase their club's revenue. The time for change begins right now. Mike McAnally is a co-founder and partner of NordicClick Digital, a digital agency that specializes in helping businesses get found online by expanding their digital footprint through paid, owned, and earned media. I know it sounds complicated, but if you're trying to figure out how to get your club to rank higher in Google, this is a conversation you're going to want to get in on. Mike is here to help you crush your club marketing. Well, thanks for listening today, and thank you to Mike McAnally for joining us. Mike is with NordicClick, one of the co-founders and partners of the company. And Mike, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, so let's do this first. Let's start with NordicClick. Who is NordicClick? What do you guys do? What's your specialty?
Sure. NordicClick Interactive is a digital marketing agency. We are based out of Excelsior, Minnesota, and we develop growth-oriented strategies for our businesses. And we primarily work with their websites to drive more traffic and convert more traffic.
Yeah, and when you say your websites, these are your client sites,
yes,
right?
Yes, client sites, absolutely.
Okay. And now the other thing is that for you who are listening is that Mike is also a member of a private club.
Yes.
Right. So the idea of private clubs and some of their challenges is you're all too familiar with. In fact, you were a member of a club that shut down, right?
Yes, I originally was a member of Minnetonka Country Club, which is now a number of homes over there in Shorewood, Minnesota, because the value of the real estate became more valuable than the golf club could produce as far as revenue. So they ended up, and it's happened to a lot of clubs locally. That is
nationally
one of the reasons.
Too, yeah,
nationally, yeah.
Sure.
That's one of the reasons is real estate. So you have clubs in primary areas that are growing, and the housing, is more in demand than a golf course.
Yeah, for sure. It's just been a very interesting time, and I know you listening, you're familiar with some of these challenges and the stories that exist out there because they're everywhere as we're talking about. So today we're going to talk about SEO or search engine optimization, or as we were discussing beforehand, search engine marketing is what a lot of people refer to it. But the bottom line is that, if you're listening and you're going, yeah, I've heard of these terms, SEO, SEM, I know that Google, or as I jokingly will say sometimes, the Google machine is something that businesses are using to market. For us as marketers, a lot of times it can feel really confusing in how to use it. And yet, what I think is so interesting is consumers, we totally get it, because whenever we're making buying decisions, we are using Google to learn more, to research, to just get answers to our questions. And it's become so much a part of our world today.
Yeah, and from an organic search perspective, that is, where people have historically searched. So we were talking earlier about Google when it originally started, in the 10 blue links is how Google gained popularity. It was all based on organic. Now there is a number of different search type of pages you'll get based on the algorithm and based on the intent and the context of your search. So organic search is still a very important part of any digital marketing strategy. However, it has been muted a little bit by the way the pages have been laid out and by the a lot of the paid advertisements that has propagated to the front page.
For sure.
It's still very important, and you cannot ignore organic search or SEO, as we'll talk about today.
Yeah, so great setup for the discussion today. Let's break this down a little bit more to the buying behaviors. What you see a lot of times, and I'm sure in your experience in private clubs, what you'll see is a lot of clubs acting in a very traditional way as far as traditional marketing with, beautiful brochures and websites that are asking people to come into their club for a tour and things like that. And yet, and they'll also tell you that we're trying to get younger, like they want younger members.
Yes.
They're, our average member is 66 years old or whatever that is. Let's talk a little bit about the younger buyer today. And by younger, it's probably anyone who thinks digitally and is online and active and searching. Let's talk a little bit about what you're seeing in trends as far as demographics maybe and how they're leveraging search today.
Yeah, and traditionally, the way golf clubs have marketed has always worked, for that demographic. And that's what people in the older generations are used to. Like you said, the slick brochures, the mailing lists, calling people, and really word of mouth is how they've grown. But the new generation is, they live on their phone. And the biggest impact to any business, but particularly local business, is mobile and local. And that's where I think a lot of the courses are missing out on that aspect for their marketing plan, is that to reach those key buyers, that millennial demographic, that those people that you need to fill the funnel for the people who eventually are going to retire, who may no longer be a member of your course, they're not really reaching out to them in the right way. And there's ways that you can easily address that through a sound plan around organic and local.
So a couple of things I would just want to dig into a little bit that you said. And first, just as for context sake for listeners, Mike and I are both. Are you 50? We're close to 50. Mike's close to 50.
I'm in my late 40s.
Yeah, and I'm in my early 50s. So it's not like you got a couple of 30-year-olds here who don't remember very clearly what it's like to get some of that collateral. So I just want people to understand that. But let's talk a little bit about the trends that you're seeing. So you went right to mobile and local, which we're going to talk about today for sure. And yet, when we first start having conversations with clubs, and I think when in discussions with people, different associations, they think their computer. Like they think, are they really going to their computer? And we've had people on this podcast who have said, you know what, people will try to find basic information on their podcast, on their phones, but then go to their desktop to make purchases and things like that. But so many searches start on a mobile device. Why is that significant, both from a demographic standpoint, and why is that significant for clubs that are thinking, boy, we should do more online? Should they be thinking more mobile first rather than desktop, or does it matter?
Well, you need to be doing both. So to start on the more traditional desktop piece, you want a well-optimized site for organic search. And that is where you start, because that is your information warehouse. Mm-hmm. So that's where you're going to talk about the course. You're going to have pictures of the course. You're going to talk about membership. And then if you have other facilities for weddings or banquets, if you have a pool, all those type of things, they need a warehouse. And that's where people will do a lot of their research. Mm-hmm. What we've seen is the movement to local-based searches. So 90% approximately of all local searches start on a phone, a mobile phone. And so when people start searching on their phone, they are going to get local results because Google understands the context of that. So if you were going to search something like private golf courses or golf courses, you don't even need to put in near me. Google's going to assume you're on a phone, they know where you are, that's what you're looking for.
Right.
And so that's what's going to influence a lot of the decisions going forward, and that's where the younger group is going to start. They may finish on your website, but they may start on mobile. So both parts are equally important, and I think that consumers will start on one or the other. But for the most part, you have to be in both spaces, or else another course may perhaps pick up that search.
So as a listener, I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, okay, I get it, that it's going to find me locally, and I get the whole idea of, GPS or,
exactly. Geotargeting.
Yeah, geotargeting. So I get that, but how do I control that as a club? And you talked about having a site that is, I hear you say search friendly, but to help a club manager or marketing person who's listening, how do they do that? How can they make sure that their website is found by Google?
Yeah, so starts with a fundamentally good site, right? A site that is produced that's mobilely responsive. That's the first thing.
Is that the biggest thing, though, mobilely responsive, like when you say a good site?
Well, that's what Google is looking for now. It's going to be speed, mobilely responsive, and then also having the right keywords in the right places within your title tags and your metadata and things like that, right? So setting the foundation and then having the content that supports that.
Okay. So let me stop you there really quickly, because there are a lot of clubs who have a website that maybe was developed 5-10 years ago, even. Let's say 5 years, most aren't 10. And they think, it's a nice website. It looks good. I don't know if it's mobile responsive, though, but it looks really good when I look at it on a computer.
And we put a lot of money into it when we did it.
Yeah, we're not going to update it. I mean, that right there is something that you could be saying to Google, or Google might be looking at that and saying, it's not mobile responsive, so I'm not going to prioritize this. Is that right?
Yeah, that is correct. They have a mobile index, and they have a desktop index and a mobile index, and they're moving towards mobile indexing. I don't know if they'll necessarily leave you out, but it's not going to help you if you're not mobile responsive, because they will understand that a majority of the searches for those type of golf course terms need mobile responsive pages. So we definitely would recommend, the first thing we'd recommend is if your site isn't up to speed, I mean that literally,
right, yeah.
Loading fast and mobily optimized, that would be the first step. And usually that can be, it doesn't have to be a huge, like, oh, we have to go through a whole redesign and spend all this money. A lot of times it can be just transferring the current content to a more responsive base code, right? And there's a number of them I won't mention, but there's a lot of them out there. The second piece is having that one page that is geo-targeted towards your location that Google can find.
So is that like where we are, location?
It's your About Us or your Contact Us page, right? Making sure that's optimized for geo-targeting, maybe has a Google embedded map, but that would be another piece. So that is, setting the foundation. The other pieces we'll talk about for the local are a different setup, but that would be the first thing we do is make sure that that site is optimized for mobile and speed. Okay,
so the next thing I wanted to ask you about, in just baby steps, is the you talked about keywords and really, I mean, what we're trying to do is tell Google and the end user what this site is all about. And you talked about meta tags and keywording, things like that. Could you just give a 1,000-foot, 30,000-foot view of what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. So metadata and title tags are what Google indexes to tell what is the context about the pages. They used to be very manipulative. You could manipulate them pretty well. But now Google's just looking for, you are a golf course in Edina, Minnesota. And then breaking down the pages into thematic groups. So if you have golf course, let's talk about the course here. If you have banquet facilities, wedding facilities, and building out those pages. On each page, there is going to be code that lets you put in what the titles are, what the description should be for the search engines to read, and then it'll follow up with the context. When Google or the other search engines, we should not leave out Bing, Yahoo, and those other search engines. When they index your site, they have a bot that goes through and looks at, okay, here's the title tag, here's what this page is about. Let's see if it has the supporting information in the context of the page. Okay. And that's what it looks for. Then an index that page that says this is obviously a golf course or it's a private course, and it's in Edina, Minnesota, or Wayzata, or Minnetonka, or whatever it happens to be. And then that's the first piece, right? And then it looks at all the other things on the site to make sure that the code is standard, it can load fast, and that's how it assigns that value based on what the bot sends back to the search engine.
So it's sort of what I'm hearing you say is all these things, the coding and all that stuff is like under the water. We don't. It's like the old. It's like there's a lot of work being done that you don't see. So you can look at your site and say, "Hey, we have a beautiful new site. It's gorgeous. Or beautiful images. You can navigate around. It's really cool." But if the metadata, and the tags and all the stuff that's under the water, so to speak, isn't taken care of, because there are some web companies out there that have done have huge impact in the club world that don't take care of the back end stuff, the stuff under the water. Yeah. Does that mean that they're not going to get found, or does it mean that other people are going to other clubs will get found before them? What's the risk in that?
Well, there's different ranking factors for the algorithm, and Google at this point, because of the enterprise level content management solutions that have come out, they expect you to have this information in the right place, right? Before, when HTML-based sites were out there, people were placing code in different spots and maybe it wasn't done the right way. They're like, you need to have this done the right way. This is like SEO 101, and if you don't have the foundation down, we're not even going to bother with you going forward. So a lot of that can be taken care of in the development. It's sort of like the foundation of your house. You need to have the foundation before you decorate, but that's really what it boils down to. And it's simpler than it seems. But once you get to that point, then Google's going to, and the search engines are going to start looking at your content and different things that they're looking at as far as, do you produce relevant content to those keywords? Are you producing content often? Do you have different types of content on your page besides just copy? Right. So videos and those type of things. And so that gives you that overall algorithm grade, and that will get you assigned to a certain place in the search engines based on that query. And it's going to change based on every query, device, where they're searching from, in items like that.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about images and video really quickly, because I feel like that's an opportunity for search that people don't always think about. Google can't see pictures. So on your wedding page, if you've got beautiful wedding photos, Google doesn't see that. how do people make sure that they maximize those images from, an optimization perspective or for search engines?
Yeah, and that's a great question. So in the old days, we saw a lot of flash or image-based sites where Google couldn't read anything. Now we're looking for people. We want to encourage people to have great photography. That's what's going to sell a golf course. That's what's going to sell a banquet facility. That's what's going to sell people looking for a wedding. Is that great photography? And that applies to any site we look at. And those images can be large and can be at the top of the page. We've seen that with the new website design. The challenge is what is below that image, right? You can use captions, you can use inlays on the image itself, but you need to have that copy below, right? You need to have that. What is this image about? Can't just be image based. From a video standpoint, again, Google can't read the videos, but they can read the metadata around the video itself. And a lot of people will transcribe that video and include that information also, just because that is going to be an important piece of the indexing for that video. Also, the titles of these images for internal linking standpoint are very important. So what you name your images and what you name your videos is very important. Don't let your computer or your Photoshop name the image for you, because it's going to be some random numbers.
Image 001.
Exactly, and that doesn't provide anything to the Google, especially when it comes to image searches. So when people search, they may be searching for golf courses and may be looking and hit the image button to see these beautiful vistas of the course. Right. Well, if you have your images and your videos with a very sequential, thought-out naming convention, you're going to see a better placement in those different areas of image and video search.
Got it. Great information there. How is it if I'm listening to this, I think, okay, this is really helpful. I'm going to go into the back end of our website, make sure we've got metadata and all this, the descriptions filled out and all this stuff. How does, and I'm a club guy and I'm going, so how do I get ranked higher than others? Like sometimes I'll go search for our club and I'll see all my competitors before me. Why does that happen?
Well, the first thing that's going to happen when you search a golf course, and it's really hard, unless you're in a national destination like a Pebble Beach or something, right? Sure. We're going to talk about local courses today.
Absolutely.
So the first thing that search engine is going to look for is proximity. How close are you, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, because if I'm ordering a pizza even, I don't want there may be a great pizza place in St. Paul, but if I'm in Minnetonka, odds are Google knows I'm probably not going to go to St. Paul for pizza. Right. Now with golf courses, it's a little more challenging. From a member private course golf club standpoint, the majority of your members are going to be within a 10-mile radius, right? Because this is a course you're playing all the time. Sure. So I want something close so I can go out and play 9 at night, or when I'm going to league, I don't have to drive an hour. Now for courses around the Twin Cities that may be public, those you may drive an hour to play a course. I drove an hour to go play a course over near Woodbury because it was a great course. Sure. I'm not going to do that every day. So the first thing you look at is proximity. So that's what Google's going to look at. How close is this search to the person who is searching it? Now, on a mobile device, almost all the time I have my location on. So I can zero in and say, I am standing in the parking lot here in St. Louis Park. And if I search it, I'm going to get courses that are around here. If you're on a desktop, depending on where your IP comes from and a lot of other factors, if you block cookies, all those things, it may not be able to give you the same really a personalized search result. So the first thing we're going to look at is proximity. And the way you identify the proximity is you have to have that information on your site. And then you also have to have those listings on places like Google Business, Bing, and some of the other aggregators out there that are going to say, here is the golf course. It's located in Plymouth, Minnesota, and this is the zip code. So that's the next piece.
Yeah, so let's just, I want to just pause on that really quickly, but the idea of having your club registered, I guess, with Google Business or those business pages, if you're not doing that, that's a huge mistake, is it not?
Absolutely. Okay. That is, for a local business, that is key to claiming those listings in what's called either a citation or a NAP, which is name, address, phone number, and having that consistency not only on Google, not only in Bing, but all the other aggregators that are out there. Yelp may be another example. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of yellow page providers that have translated online. There's a lot of just search and GPS aggregators that will have that information. So having that consistent, that's the next thing we do, is developing a consistent citation across the web. So like whenever somebody searches you, you're going to have a consistent address and phone number and information about your location.
So when you say citation, that's kind of like your boilerplate information.
Exactly.
You got to have this consistent. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really helpful. So, and I just wanted to clarify. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you could get a totally different ranking on your phone when you do a search based on where you are versus if you're sitting in your office or your home doing the same query.
Yes, just because of the ability to, and we're talking about if people don't have the privacy stuff all turned off. They're trying to cloak themselves. They're searching incognito. But yes, the phone is going to be. They're getting better with the desktops, but the phone is obviously going to be, geo-targeted down to your exact location.
Yeah.
So those searches will be primarily more accurate than a desktop search from a local perspective.
Interesting. So, I was just going to go down the line of like, if you don't care about local, then, but either way, you can still dig deep enough. Like, let's just say you're on your mobile device and you're like, yeah, I know that club, but I'd never joined that club, or I know that club or you're looking for a specific club because someone said, hey, have you ever heard of, Johnson River, or whatever that is. And then you can go and say, I don't see it in this list, but you can keep looking. And then you talk to Johnson River and say, hey, you got to fix your website probably for search, right? So let's talk a little bit more. I think the local search thing is such an interesting topic. When it comes to organic search versus a paid campaign, what are the important things that people have to know about the difference between that? Because sometimes I think people think, well, paid is the only way because, and there's that old mindset I always think, which is that, well, if I pay for it, then I know I'm going to see it. But which is good. I always feel like that's really good for brand awareness and making sure that you're top of mind for people. But we also recognize that not a lot of people are clicking paid ads. And it depends on what the ad is. But what should clubs know about the differences and when to use an organic play versus a paid play?
Well, organic should be your long strategy, right? We look at organic as the marathon versus paid as the sprint. So organic should be worked on consistently so that it's working for you all year long. And when we look at local, we really consider that local SEO as local organic search. So that's the first place that we would really suggest clubs work. And when we look at local SEO, we talked about the citations or the name, address, and phone number, having that consistent. We look at there's directories that you can submit, legitimate directories that we work with that you can submit your location to hundreds of different aggregators, right? But the second piece is the second most important piece is reviews. Wow. Do you have reviews of your establishment? So in the course standpoint, you're going to have reviews of the course. And we're not even talking about necessarily need to be all good reviews. If you had 6 5-star reviews, it's better to have hundreds of reviews that give you an overall rating of 4.5. All
right. So from a search perspective,
yes,
it might make a GM go, no, I don't want that. Right.
Yeah. And when I went through and I did and I've done searches in the past, helping out my own local club and things like that, we look and say, you have 20 reviews, yet you have 300 members. You have 300 members that are paying and are brand advocates for you. They obviously like your club because they're paying to be a member, yet they haven't reviewed the course. So we don't want to pay people to solicit. We don't want to be, unethical when we ask for reviews, but there's nothing wrong with asking members to review the course because those member reviews those peer reviews are going to bring people in. So if I'm looking for a family-friendly course, I have 3 sons. 2 of them are starting junior league on Monday. I may be searching primarily for a family-based course that has family-oriented features like golf, training, pools, whatever it happens to be. If I see another person who's like me, maybe my same age or close, giving a good review about a course, that's going to sway my decision more than if I went to their static website and looked at a bunch of pretty pictures. Yeah. So having those reviews is really a key part of driving that person to say, I'm going to pick up the phone or I'm going to click this little website button and check it out. Right. And then they get to the website and then you're going to have all the typical CTAs, call to action, that you would see, request a brochure, give us a call, membership options, those type of things.
So just a couple thoughts. It's great advice and it's great information, especially when you said we have 300 members, but we have 20 reviews. So I get that as a club manager, you're going, I'm not going to my members to say, hey, review us on Google. But what if you said to your members, hey, here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to raise awareness of our club and all the great benefits that our club has to offer. If you could take a few minutes to review us on Google, we'll give you $25 shop credit. We'll give you $100 shop, whatever that is, some sort of a credit to your members to say, we appreciate you supporting the club in this way. Just a thought, whether it matters, because Google doesn't know if you have an incentive, but it does know whether your club has been reviewed, and it values that tremendously.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. We try to avoid any kind of paid reviews because if Google finds out about it, they can nick you on that a little bit. It's okay. There are other ways to do that. I mean, so we know that of manufacturers, right? They send out, let's say, shoes. They'll send out free pairs of shoes to bloggers and reviewers online to review and let them keep them. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of that payola thing, right? Yeah. Most of the time, what we've seen success with is just in the club newsletter, reaching out to members and saying, hey, we'd love to hear your opinion on the course. Please go online and review the course, be honest, and in particular, mention any people at the course that provide outstanding customer service for you. Now, when you look at TripAdvisor, one of the things that they do a really good job of with resorts is they really encourage you to say, hey, John was awesome he treated my family so well this week. And that gives John kudos on those ends. And so I think when golf courses try to personalize it, people will be like, you know what? Bob at the course has been awesome. I've been a member for 5 years. My clubs are already ready. He's always friendly. He's great to my kids. We should mention Bob in the review. Yeah. So those are the type of things that we look at is you can incent people to make those reviews by just reaching out to your base. They may want to do it. They're busy people and they forget about it. And then if you remind them and tell them how to do it, give them a link. That's the kind of area where you could probably pick up 20, 30 reviews quickly just from your membership base.
And what we're seeing is that like you're talking about is that reviews are becoming more and more important for ranking. I mean, Google wants its relevance for sure, but they want to direct people to the best possible result for their query. And if a lot of people are saying, hey, we've been here, hey, we've experienced, and they're going to prioritize them in that way. Now, how does that the one thing I want to just throw out there as well is another opportunity for clubs is you do weddings. Yep. You do events, you do Monday golf outings, and those are all opportunities. So when people, so many businesses today want to know, want you to review your experience, right? I just flew Delta, and right away you get that survey.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you could do that survey for your own intel, for your own, knowledge, so but you could you also, I should ask them to just say, hey, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to offer your review on Google.
Yeah, I mean, and that is...
that's not breaking a rule, I guess.
No, not at all. Okay. And there's even crazy things like beacon technology that could prompt things on their phone when they walk in for a wedding. Ooh. That would ask that. But again, we're getting a little future state, but it is creepy. That might freak people out. But when we look at it is if there's with members, it's easier because they're going to come back and right. You can remind them multiple times. People who may be there for a wedding may be there once. They may go to that golf course once in their life, but they might have a great experience and may want to review you. So obviously you want to leave, whether it's a sign on the door. Any resort I've ever been to, I don't know if you travel a lot, there is TripAdvisor stuff everywhere. Yeah. We're a 5-star TripAdvisor resort. Please review us in TripAdvisor. It's in your room. I don't think courses are aggressive enough on asking people to tell. And if you do a good job and you feel great about your facility, you should want reviews to come in. And be ready to take your lumps. You may get some bad ones, but when people look at reviews, I would rather see a few reviews that are maybe not as good, but then all the reviews are honest instead of having 100 5-star reviews. This is the best course. Yeah. The second piece to that, which you mentioned earlier, when we look at things you need to do from a local perspective, is local links. So a lot of courses have Monday is to typical private course outings are on Monday. If you have a charitable foundation coming in, or you're giving some sort of, you're helping them with maybe not charging them sales tax because they're a charitable foundation, or you're providing some things for free, getting a local link from their site is going to be a very powerful tool for Google, right? So if you supported a local, whether it's a sports facility, I run my wrestling golf outing at my club, we give a link back, but perhaps, those types of .org links are very powerful from a local perspective. Yeah. So getting those links back and asking for those links, there's nothing wrong with that. Right. And asking those people to share a review of the course too, to talk about how great the facility was. You're not always recruiting members. You want people to come there for, like you said, weddings, banquets, events. That's the lifeblood of a course throughout the year, of that constant revenue, because most of the dues are paid up front.
Yeah.
So they need those things to keep the course operationally sound throughout the year.
Absolutely. That's great advice. I love that. Let's just go down this is a little bit of a tangent, but I think it's really worthwhile, and it's just on the idea of reviews, because you just said it, sometimes people they don't ask for it because sometimes they think, well, I don't know what they're going to say, or what if they don't say something good, or, I just did a review. I bought a couple of things for my daughter and I are doing a mission trip. And I wanted to do a review on cots, okay? Because I don't want to sleep on an air mattress, but whatever. So I read a bunch of reviews, and it was like the average was like 4.5 stars or something like that, right? And I read one review that was like a 1, and it was so funny. So the guy gave it a 1 because he's like 5'2", he said, and he likes to sleep with his leg hanging over the edge. And the way the cot was built is his leg was like right on where one of the where it like bends, and it hurt his leg. And I'm like, so you gave it a 1 or what, a 1 star because you happen to be of a certain size and sleep in a very particular way, so the thing is bad, but yet a lot of times as businesses we know that that's kind of kooky, and we don't like to read bad reviews. And yet the way I look at it, and we've had some bad Glassdoor reviews, for example, at Storyteller. I love the feedback. I love to know what people are thinking, and you can have all the excuses for it. But in the end, it doesn't matter what you think. Don't you really want to know what other people are saying about your club?
Exactly.
Right?
Yes. And we use the old phrase, rotten apple spoils the bunch. One of the things with reviews is if you only have 20 reviews and the one or two are bad, they can tank your rating. And it could be something completely based on, like you said.
Yeah, I'm 5'2", my leg hurts.
Yeah, my leg hurts. Or, I didn't book the trip right, but I'm going to rip this hotel because they didn't give me an upgrade. So there's all those types of things that happen. So we're like, you want as many 5-star and 4-star reviews as possible to offset those ones that will there. Because, if you have a bad customer experience on an airline, you're more likely to fill out that survey than if everything went fine.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
And so that's what you're dealing with, is that you have to have a good offense to offset those people that are going to come in that had the bad experience. At the same time, people freak about bad reviews, and we're like, you know what? If somebody's legitimately reading the reviews, and I do all the time, I look at peer reviews for restaurants, I look at it for hotels or anything. I want to see those ones every once in a while because it makes it more natural.
Right.
It
seems more real.
Yeah, it's not bought for reviews.
Right, because otherwise you start reading them and you're going, really? I mean, all these people, not one person.
It's the old infomercial. Mike B from, wherever loves this product. It's like, well, who is Mike B, right? So it gives it a little more realism.
Yeah. Great segue to the one of the last things I wanted to just get your thoughts on is advertising and organic, and we've talked a little bit before we started today. We talked about the emphasis on having really good content, really good information. What should clubs? A lot of clubs that we talk to think, well, we don't know how to create that, or we don't know what is good, or where does it go, and things like that, which is kind of a separate conversation, but. The clubs that really look at paid strategies, and whether that's Facebook ads or Google AdWords or whatever that is, you talked about the long-term play and the short-term play. What should people know about that long-term play that as it relates to how much content? And we've talked on this podcast about blogging and that slow burn and building an audience and things like that. What are the things from your perspective, being close to this, this part of this marketing part, what do you see as being the critical things if you're going to start an organic play?
Well, we've really discussed organic, and you mentioned the paid advertising, right? Yeah. The true reality is that Google has pushed, and the other search engines has pushed the organic top search rate, ranking down about 400 pixels on the page. Every search you have, there's going to be shopping ads, there's going to be local ads, there's going to be whatever. So you need to compete with paid media just to sometimes be found. So one of the challenges with golf clubs we see is, well, it can cheapen the brand. We don't want to look like we're desperate for members. But at the same time, there's no brand, even luxury brands, that don't have some sort of advertising. You can look at Gucci or whatever you want. They put ads out there. It doesn't tarnish the brand. The key is you want to have a strategy that has what we talked about, your SEO, organic, content growth, local search. That should be going on year round. But you can have what we call sprints with paid media and say, you know what, starting in March when that snow starts to melt here in Minnesota, and again, it's different all over the country, we should have a blitz of advertising about our spring membership special. Right? We're offering a low equity or no equity or play for a certain cost until June 15th and make your decision. Those are the type of things that you can get good placement. And the good news for anybody out there who has courses listening, there's not a lot of competition out there right now. So it wouldn't cost you a lot of money. And when we look at paid media, we're going to look at geo-targeted campaigns that you can run specific to whatever it happens to be, whatever that search is. So if you want to promote your banquet business or your wedding business or your courses, your Monday outings, or just membership, you can cater those campaigns towards it. You can create content specific to wedding. You could go as granular and say, I want to run within 10 miles. I want to appear if somebody searches for private golf courses near me. Or I want to appear in all of the Twin Cities for somebody searching for wedding facilities. Mm-hmm. You could cater, one would be, we're going to drive those people to our site and we're going to have them see all the pretty pictures about the golf course, and we're going to try to get them to download the membership form or call in. From the banquet perspective, you could have a video from a most recent wedding or a banquet that you're pushing the page to. Again, one's a more aggressive hard sell and one's a more soft sell. The beauty of paid media is that you can cater the campaign to the specific call to action. So you can be more top of the funnel and educational, catching them when they're researching and say, I want these to be desktop-based searches. Or you can be more call to action. We want people to come out and golf because it's spring. Same thing with fall. A lot of courses do what they call fall specials because they want people to come out mid-August and golf for the rest of the year and see how beautiful the course is when the leaves change. But when we look at that should be part of your whole marketing mix. When we look at, they used to call it SEM, which is search engine optimization and PPC together. Now it's bigger than that. Now it's the organic search, social, paid media, all working together to drive that qualified traffic to your site.
Great stuff. What I love about, one of the things I love about what you're saying as well is that just that luxury resorts advertise and it doesn't tarnish their brand. And so often I think, whether or not you are a club that says, yeah, we want to push our spring special, fall special as an ad online, it's your call, right? But it doesn't mean that you can't do some sort of a paid campaign that appeals to people in a different way. Maybe your emotions. Isn't it time you explore, blah, 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 family experiences, whatever. I mean, whatever fits your brand, it's a great idea. And the fact that you can do it in sprints. I want to ask you something that's kind of, it's a little squirrely and it's probably not super ethical, but just that knowing that, for a club to do, but can a club say, hey, I'm just a little bit further ahead in this whole digital marketing than the other guy, I'm going to buy the search terms for all my competitors in the market. So if anyone's going to look up, in my area, the competing clubs, if they Google them, they're going to get my paid ad first. Can they do that?
Yes, they can. They can buy the terms. There are some trademark rules where you can't put the name of the course, like let's say in your ad copy. Okay. But if somebody searched for your neighboring course, and they were close to you, you could buy their name for those searches, and you mysteriously pop up. We see it all the time. Right. Even some of our biggest clients that are Fortune 500 companies will have competitors bidding on their terms. Yeah. So you have to be a little sneaky about it, and there's ways to do it. And sometimes your quality score won't be as good as it needs to be to get that placement. But if there's nobody bidding on it, it might be a little more expensive, but you can do that. And you're right, it is kind of sneaky.
Right. Yeah. It's slimy, but
it happens.
Well, that's what I was thinking when you said that it's not super competitive. And if you're wondering what all that means, because you're new to this whole conversation, it means that if there's a search term that a lot of people want to be found for, it's like a bidding war, right? I mean, and Google will set that price and will can potentially drive the price, through the roof if there's enough competition. Let me just let's wrap up with a couple things. Where's this all going? What do you think the future is for search, especially with so much with Google Assistant now getting so strong and so much voice stuff? Where do you think this is all going to go in the next 5-10 years?
It really. You mentioned voice. I mean, there's a lot of futuristic things that come out there. You mentioned voice. Voice is going to be the biggest influencer on the searches and the way anything goes forward. I have kids, younger kids, and they grew up with an iPhone. It's had in their hand. We have Amazon Alexa in the house. There's Google Home, Siri, all these things. They're used to talking to their devices, right? And so when you look at voice search, where it's taking off is obviously the younger generation, but also the older generation, because it's harder for them to type and see those things. So they talk into their phones and ask it questions. My dad yells into his phone all the time, asking questions about politics or whatever happens to be. So I think that the days of golf courses near me searches are going to be in the rearview mirror from I'm looking for a golf course that has a pool and family activities. Those are the type of searches you're going to get. So your content, where you need to build content towards that, right? So having those different type pieces of content where Google says, wow, this course has a video on family-friendly activities on their site, right? Mm-hmm. So we have junior league, we have games, we have movie night, we have the pool, those type of things. Mm-hmm. Those are the type of things that, again, is going to be key to creating the proper content. So looking at your analytics on your site, seeing what people are searching, asking your members in reviews, looking through the reviews, how do they refer to your course? What do they talk about? And then building out content towards that. Futuristically, we talked about beacons and things, things like that, where you walk in the proximity of a course and the ad pops up. You're driving down the road, perhaps someday when the cars even get more, and they're going to, in your map is going to be a picture and an advertisement of the golf course that's right around the corner. And you may be like, I never even knew there was a golf course down that road. Right. I never knew that was a course that close to me. So I think a lot of that, that really zeroing in on location and then of course your behavior. What are you searching online? Are you signed in? And catering those messages to you. We've heard so much about Google and Facebook privacy and how they're dialing that back. But the funny thing is we want them to dial it back. We're really concerned about our privacy, but we want a personalized experience at the same time, right? When we search golf courses, I don't want to see a golf course in Omaha. I want that personalized information. Well, how do they get that? They have to have some information on you. So it's really a trade. We have to trade some of our personal information to get that personalized experience. At the same time, we don't want them invading our privacy to the point where we feel like this is a little creepy.
Yeah. That, we've reached this point where I feel like Google, Facebook, any online, Amazon, they all know. And in fact, I almost feel like they could unleash so much technology today, but they don't want to freak people out. Like there's, because you see things starting to change and evolve. Like I was looking at Google Maps the other day because I use that to get anywhere now. And it started, what do you call it, pin drop or whatever.
Yep.
All the locations and places that I visited. Yes. And I'm like, wow, that was really, really cool.
Yeah, they tracking your location and things like that. And, you hear the stories of Alexa listening to you.
Yeah.
My kids now unplug Alexa when they're not using it because, they
might hear them say something.
I've been on phone calls before where I'm in the office on a phone call and Siri all of a sudden starts talking.
Yeah.
And I may have said something that triggered her or something. But, I think people get a little freaked out about what level of information are you collecting? I mean, how do I control that? And I think that's going to be the biggest step to having that personalized experience of, I can talk to this device and it gives me information, and whatever we get to holograms someday or whatever is going to be that control of privacy. Like what level of information do these giants have right now? I think if we knew how much they have right now, we'd be scared to death.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, thanks so much for your time and your insight today. It's been really helpful. And for people listening, where can they find out more about NordicClick?
They can go to our website at NordicClick.com, and all our social profiles are on the same, just NordicClick. So please check us out, and definitely appreciate the time to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is golf and digital marketing at the same time.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Mike, and we appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining the conversation today. Now, you may be locked in with a platform that hosts your website, but it doesn't mean the public-facing side of your site has to be on that platform. Next week, we're going to talk to Joe Jerome, owner of Brand Builder Solutions, and they help businesses turn their website into their most valuable sales tool. He'll help us understand where your website might be falling short and how you can fix it.